Thank you very much. Dr. Rusenko, welcome. You have in front of you a witness declaration. I'd be grateful if you could read that. And I should say, because I think this is the first time that you've been in the room, you've been lucky enough not to be in the room. Let me introduce myself. I'm Daniel Bethlehem, sitting in the chair for these proceedings. To my right, your left is Mark Cantor, and on my left, your right is Raul Venuesa as the tribunal. Opposing counsel, the respondents are to your right, Mr. Alexandrov and his team. Now, with that, I'd be grateful if you could read the witness declaration, and then we'll go on to examination in chief.
Okay. I solemnly declare upon my honor and conscience that I shall speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you very much. Mr. Copa.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Dr. Rusenko, maybe we have your witness statement for you, and so I won't be taking you through your witness statement, but it's useful perhaps to simply tell the tribunal what you do for a living, what's your professional qualification and calling.
I am the marine conservationist for the city of Boca Raton in Florida, and I'm the principal marine turtle permit holder for the city and have been for 19 years. Have more experience with sea turtles as well, but I'm responsible for all the sea turtle monitoring, stranding and salvage, and other activities within the city, such as construction permits and lighting issues.
And just to ask you the obvious question, does Boca Raton have nesting turtles?
Boca Raton is actually one of the most densely nested urban areas in Florida. In the last few years, we've had upwards of about 1,000 or more nests in our 5-mile area or 8-kilometer area.
Now, you traveled to Costa Rica in the summer of 2007, and what I'd like you to communicate to the tribunal, and you've said this in your witness statement, but summarize what you found when you went to Costa Rica by way of the beaches at Playa Grande and Playa Ventanas, and what measures you concluded would have to be considered for protecting the sea turtle nesting capacity in that area.
When I arrived in Playa Grande, the very first thing I noticed was tamarindo, and that scared me an awful lot. Here was a city that just appeared almost out of nowhere, and that's an example of development you definitely don't want to see in that area. Playa Grande itself was very sparsely developed when I was there in 2007, low houses, lots of vegetation, really a beautiful area. The beach was just gorgeous. Seeing the difference between Tamarindo and Playa Grande, I thought that the people that had asked me to come to Playa Grande were reaching out to me to help develop a code of development that would allow them to develop without affecting nesting on the beaches of Playa Grande. And for that, I definitely pointed out that Tamarindo is not the direction you're going in, because if you are, I'm not going to be here. But they were they were okay with having height restrictions, having minimum lot sizes. We did not want that area to just, there was so much wildlife there beyond turtles, the howler monkeys and the birds and everything. It's an area that we don't want to see damaged or destroyed. So it's really more than just the turtles. It's the whole area is just something that really needs to be preserved.
Okay. Now, and in 2009, did you, I'm sorry, just at one point you met with President Arias.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
That was 2007, I believe.
Okay, I'm sorry. So before we get there then, did you address the question of development behind the beach, assuming that the 50-meter zone was the only actual protection, and what was your advice in that respect?
Yeah, at the time, my understanding was that the 50-meter zone was not to be violated whatsoever, and the other properties were beyond that. And in areas where the 50-meter zone was heavily vegetated, that would be good to block any activity or lighting, bad lighting if they had any, from the beach. So that would have been a good thing. I suggested that they start replanting the northern end where some of the houses had actually, either the vegetation was naturally taken out or somehow the development itself removed the vegetation. But my suggestion was to revegetate that area within the 50-meter zone.
Okay. And was your discussion about development contemplating that there would be development then behind the 50-meter zone?
My experience has been that if there's an area that people are interested in, it's going to end up being developed if nothing is done.
Okay.
So there do need to be controls.
Okay. And just briefly tell the panel what controls you had in mind by way of a development code then.
Most of my expertise was in lighting, so I definitely had suggestions as to what not to do for lighting. They actually took me around to a few of the properties at the north end, and I did point out some of the houses that had lighting that was potentially harmful to the beach and was really useless. They brought out a plan that they were working on that talked about no more than 1 or 2 stories closer to the 50-meter zone, and as they move back away from the beach, the height restriction would go up to maybe 3 stories, but nowhere beyond that. So no high rises, no big building complexes. So that's pretty much where we were going with that. I also talked about minimum lot size. We didn't want it packed in with these tiny little lots where you could barely fit a structure on. And also within that lot size, there was a maximum area that they could build a building on so that there would be vegetation around that.
Okay, and then just moving on to 2009, and we do have your witness statement, but what was your involvement with the issue of development in and around that park in 2009?
In 2009, to the best of my recollection, we were honing the code, trying to make people understand that something like that would at least keep a tamarindo from happening once more. And a lot of it was talking to some of the people that were there and also viewing other properties in the area that had been developed and in most cases big development projects I saw in the area did not really come out good.
Those are my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Alexandra.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Dr. Rusenko.
Good afternoon.
You weren't in the room when I introduced myself on Monday, so let me introduce myself. My name is Stanimir Alexandrov. Our team represents the Republic of Costa Rica, and I'll be asking you a few questions relating to your witness statements. We will distribute a binder with a couple of documents that we'll be referring to. Tab 1 and 2 of the binder are your first and second witness statements, Dr. Rusenko. I just want to confirm your testimony which you've given and you gave a moment ago on direct that you are employed as a marine biologist by the city of Boca Raton in Florida.
That's correct.
Can you look at your second witness statement, tab 2, paragraph 2, please?
Yes, sir.
I'll ask you to read that paragraph into the record, please.
Ratone Pietra is a respected sea turtle biologist with many outstanding years of experience, and I am happy to say that we see eye to eye on most of the facts. With this statement, I will focus on the areas which we do not appear to share consensus.
Thank you. I'm not a scientist, I'm only a lawyer, and I will, when I make representations to you, I may not be quite accurate. So please bear with me. But as I understand the gist of your testimony, what you're saying is urban development may be harmful to the nesting of the turtles, and in fact, in most cases is, unless it is carefully and strictly controlled. Is that generalization more or less correct?
That's very close to being correct, yes.
Okay. And then you're saying, as I understand it, that if urban development is carefully and strictly controlled, then expropriation may not be necessary because some urban development consistent with the standards of protection may be allowed. Is that more or less correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, there has been a dispute about the areas of the park and all that, and I'm not going to get into that, but if we assume that the government of Costa Rica decided, in addition to the 50 meters public zone, to expropriate private properties in the adjacent 75 meter strip, that would mean, presumably, that no further urban development will be allowed in that area, right?
Correct.
And so, in a way, would you agree that whether or not it's necessary, the government of Costa Rica is going a little bit beyond of what you call a strict and, well, strictly controlled urban development and saying, I would not want to see any development in that area to protect the turtles?
Yes.
Yeah. And what I'm trying to understand is your position is that that is not necessary because there are other ways to protect the turtles. But as I understand from your testimony, you do agree that expropriating private property within the 75 meters is a measure that does protect the turtles.
That's correct.
So in a way, it is a stronger measure than controlling development. It may be unnecessarily stronger, but it is stronger.
It's stronger, but you still need to control development beyond that 125 meters.
So you're saying, in addition to whatever is done within the 75 meters, whether a prohibition of urban development or strict control, you need to do more beyond the 125 meters.
That's correct.
Could you turn to tab 1, which is your first witness statement, paragraph 7.
Yes, sir.
At the end of that paragraph, you're describing here a discussion you had with Miss Ana Facio, and you say, I also told her that development restrictions alone would not necessarily be the only answer, suggesting that a public educational facility should be developed to teach tourists and residents in the area about the importance of the beach and its surroundings for sea turtles as well as other wildlife in the area. You
That's
see
correct.
that? To your knowledge, does the park staff headed by Mr. Piedra engage in such an educational effort with tourists and residents?
They do on a smaller scale from what I'm talking about.
Okay. Could you turn to tab 5? And for the record, that is Exhibit C70. Now that's a letter from you to Minister Jorge Rodriguez. That's the Minister of Minae.
Right.
For the record, members of the tribunal, that is not Carlos Manuel Rodriguez, but Minister Jorge Rodriguez. The date is August 27, 2009, correct?
Correct.
And in this letter, well, you are attaching to this letter your responses to the minister's questions, correct?
Yes, sir.
So, as you've testified, the government of Costa Rica, through the minister, engaged in a discussion with you on what you consider the appropriate measures to protect the turtles.
That's correct.
Do you have any reason to doubt, Dr. Rusenko, that the government of Costa Rica was willing and interested in making a genuine effort to protect the turtles?
No, I don't.
Let's look at some of the responses you've given. If you look at, if you look at the top right-hand side corner, we have page X of Y. I want to refer to those page numbers to avoid confusion. So I'm asking you to refer to page 5 of 12. And at the very bottom, the paragraph at the bottom, you have stated, you see the text that begins with development that occurs?
Yes.
Could I impose on you to read that, the text that begins with that through the end of the paragraph, please?
Development that occurs under well-enforced environmental codes or laws will ensure that the environment and the development can coexist in the future to the benefit of Costa Rica. It is important to maintain large areas of pristine park for many species of wildlife in Costa Rica. Smaller, more fragmented parks are not effective for many types of wildlife that require large forage areas. In the case of Playa Grande, only a narrow strip of beach is national park area, which is fine for the sea turtles that go to sea to forage. Controlled, low-impact development, as described in the Bill of Law, can ensure protection of the nesting beach and protection of the many native species of plants and animals that make use of this dry forest.
Could I ask you, so you're saying large areas of pristine park for many species is necessary,
Correct.
and fragmented parks are not effective in many cases.
That's correct.
Did you consider Playa Grande a large area of pristine park or a fragmented park? Did you put it in one of those two categories?
As it exists right now, it's an important dry forest area. I would say, in respect to the size of the dry forests in the area, that it would be a large park. It also has a very nice estuary to the south of it with beautiful growth of mangroves, which again is a very important area to protect.
And it is your concern that urban development could bring it to a situation, if it were to be allowed, would bring it to a situation that you consider disastrous in the neighboring towns such as Tamarindo?
That's correct.
If I can ask you, we're still in the same document, to turn to page 8 of 12. And I'm looking at section 6 and the text below that. So you're saying, I'm reading now from that paragraph, obviously the more land available for any park, the better it would be for the wildlife of that park. Unfortunately, the 75-meter strip has been disputed from the park's beginning, resulting in confusion and so far small-scale development in the Playa Grande area. And you find that bothersome, correct, Dr. Rusenko?
Correct.
Okay. Let's look at the end of that paragraph. When you say residents are strictly not allowed on the beach at night, and then you say, I quote, I was asked to leave the beach while photographing the lights of Tamarindo on 3 separate occasions. So it is your testimony that there is enforcement on the beach, at least, where tourists or visitors are asked not to be there at night.
Correct.
Do you know that this enforcement effort is made by the park rangers led by Mr. Pietra?
Yes, I do.
No further questions, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Let me just see whether any of my colleagues want to ask questions. Dr. Rusenko, thank you very much. We have no further questions for you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for your assistance to the tribunal.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
So, my apologies. I jumped straight ahead
Nothing
before you
arising.
go.
Nothing arising. Thank you, Mr. President.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Vinuesa.
My apologies to Claimant's Counsel for missing that. Thank you very much, Dr. Rusenko.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
To both parties, I think that concludes the agenda that we wanted to cover for today. We'll finish a little bit early now. We start tomorrow at 9:30, and we have respondents, facts, witnesses. My understanding is that the respondents, fact witnesses are going to be testifying in Spanish, so that will be done through interpretation. Just to note for the room as a whole, we've given latitude, the tribunal's given latitude to the parties if there is time available tomorrow, at least a reasonable block of time available tomorrow, to use that time to respond to the questions from the tribunal, but we will reassess that tomorrow to see whether that time will be well spent or whether you simply want to reserve that until Friday. And I think with that, let me thank everyone here, the interpreters, the reporters. Thank you very much, and we will adjourn until tomorrow morning.